Okay, so this is what scraps of paper I have left after I made two page layouts and a couple tag cards. So I'm going to probably make a one-pager because with these scraps, I can pull a couple elements, just a really clean one-page look. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to try to pull on this 12 by 12 sheet. This is not part of the Kiwi book yet, but it's just a sheet that I had. I think it matches pretty good. So, or you could do like a white cardstock, but this is just extra sheets that I had in around. So now I'm going to take all these scraps and see what we can do. Okay, so when I'm working with scraps of paper, I often do more of a collage feel really quickly. So you really are limited to the shapes and sizes of your scraps. So instead of, laying it out and playing to create, I do it a little different. So for me, I look at the scrap and I say, oh, what can I get out of it? And I thought about a scallop. So I'm gonna grab my scallops and then trace and cut it out of this piece. So it just changes the process a little for me when I'm working with scraps to make some one-pagers or things like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do the steps of trace, cut, and then of course ink, and I will add it to my design and then build up around it. Okay, so I should also probably point out the reason why on that scrap of paper I thought of the scallops, because it was very limited on the strip and scallops are straight. So for me, when I looked at that piece, I was like, you know what, I could probably get a scallop out of it because scallops are straight. When the borders are, of course, they have deeper waves, which means you just need a little bit more width of paper. So then at that point, I'm pulling it in and then I think, okay, what else can I pull in? I have this really cute template that I thought about using, and I'll probably cut that out of that. I do have this, but it's pattern on the other side. I mean, I could absolutely pull in this saying, but I don't think I need it. So I'll probably just do these as like ways to point out, my picture, to kind of frame in my picture there. Same thing. Maybe I'll add journaling here. I'm just placing pieces at this point, what I have left. I have this with brown on the back, this Farm Fresh with brown on the back, and that's kind of a fun pattern, so maybe I can get something out of that. And I do have this, but again, very limited. So maybe a bracket or something like that. Let me play with that and see what I can come up with. So I'm just going to test it out and then play and see if I like the design. That way I'm not creating a design that won't even have an option to work with my paper, right? I need some pumpkins. Now, nature is one of this month's featured set, and so is country, which is just so much fun. So I could go, instead of maybe more pumpkin feel, I could go more like the tree, more outdoors feel. Maybe something like that. And I'm pushing them towards the thing. You can absolutely fill in the space. Let me show you that if you wanted to do something like that. But for me, I always kind of keep it close to the picture because it brings focus to the picture. It just depends on what you're doing in a way. No, it's not working. So we could definitely do more of a and kind of see where that goes. And That will help use up some of these last pieces. I'll still have a couple pieces left, but we can see where that takes us. Maybe we'll throw in nature just to kind of layer it a little there too. Okay, let me play with that. So here is this piece. I can either do that color or that color. I don't like that color on that background. And it's fun to pull in one more pattern as an option. So let me trace that out. I have little scraps of this. Let's see if we can get that out of the leaf. Probably this way. Okay, now that I cut that leaf out, I'm just testing, should I do the yellow or the blue? I decided on the yellow, so I'm just going to do the same steps of tracing and then detaching it from my paper and then just cutting that design out. Okay, now that I finished that layer, I'm just moving on to the second layer. I'm going to trace it out of this burlap paper sheet that we put into our Kiwi Cups kits this month, just to add that texture and dimension, which is a lot of fun. And of course you just trace it on the back. And same steps, I'm going to cut it out, the details, and then I'll add that layer back. And I did ink the edges by just using my ink pad, so I just kind of touch it up on the sides with the ink pad itself. And then I'm going to add another layer because it looks like it kind of needs a center. And then this is where the scraps of paper come in again, so I'm just going to pick a scrap of paper that I can definitely get that piece of paper out. I think it's just so wonderful that you can use all your scraps of paper. It's definitely a way to incorporate the designer templates, many benefits to them. Not only just designing, but also to really utilize your paper to its full potential. So that's kind of where it is. At this point, I'm just kind of making sure that I don't want any other layers or using my scraps. Again, since I have my scraps, this is kind of where I get to this point. And I'm like, well, I might as well use another layer because I have these scraps of paper, and so just another 10 minutes and you'll be surprised how you can go from a good layout to a really, really nice layout that almost makes you look like you spent, I don't even know, 2 hours on, when overall this layout probably took me about 20 minutes in total. So now that I have it all designed and cut out of my scraps of paper, I'm going to adhere the elements down on my page. So I'm using this heavy duty tape here. It's actually quite easy for me to use. I did this in a live crop, and it was, usually you put it in this dispenser, but then I couldn't find the dispenser that one day, and I hauled this thing keeping around. And I just have fallen into this habit of just using it the way I'm using it. It actually works really good. It's really heavy duty. Especially when you're adding to these like more texture feels. You definitely want to either use glue dots or more of a heavier adhesive. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Yep, I did it in a live crop over in the group, and since then I've just kept doing it. It's kind of convenient. So okay, so see on this stuff, it's not as sticky, so you have to adhere it to the paper and then that to it. So I'm just going to add a glue dot here, probably 2 of them, and then I'll place this down. And the same thing, I want to add a glue dot to the back of this. With any of those kind of texture things, they really have to be, you know, cautious of the tape, even on those glue dots. That could rip those apart. So, cute. All right, and then I was going to tuck this in there, so now I'm going to have to maneuver it to get that up there. Actually, I think I was going to try putting the date. What if I put the date up there and then journaling down here? Sure, okay. Okay, so just looking at a couple of my scraps that I have left over, I'm thinking a little bit of pop of this yellow would be fun. So that's what it's like working with scraps, right? You kind of patchwork it as you go along. So that's the thought process there. I'll try seeing what that looks like behind there. It's kind of cute. Okay, let's see if I can get it out of this scrap. Oh, it's a tight squeeze. And then that goes up to their nose. Too much for me. So, any other scraps? I have this yellow. I could pull that down instead. Can I get it out of that? Kind of. Not really, though. If I twisted it, not really. Brown. And it doesn't have the effect that I would want it to have. I don't want another word. I could try, no. Okay. So then the option is, even though this is just a little bit off, I can manipulate it and we'll see if we can get it to work. So I'm gonna trace the bottom. And then I'm gonna slide it down just so I can get a little bit of that stem and follow that again. Okay, so we're gonna try that. Just adds a little bit of pop of color there. I kind of like that. And we're done. And these are the scraps that I officially have left. Not bad.